G'day Bomber fans, another training recap for you. We had Match Sim yesterday, which obviously means I've got to hype up some players. It is not a preseason if I don't get excited about blokes dunking on reserves players in Match Sim. But we do have some bad news as well today. We have a couple of injury updates, including an unfortunate knee injury for a young forward who was looking in great shape and in great touch heading into the season. So training update, injury update, Match Sim recap. Let's get into it. So yesterday's Match Sim, earlier than usual in the week. It's been on Saturday sessions until now. We started on a Friday. This is maybe to give us more time to recover for the upcoming practice games in February, or maybe it's to give us the extra day break for the next Match Sim we have, just so we can utilise the breaks more heading into regular season. And now this Match Sim was probably the worst in terms of AFL quality. There were quite a few of our boys missing, either because of injury or rehab, or erring on the side of caution. There was also a wedding that claimed a few scalps as well. Redmond, Langford and Parish were there, so those are some big names missing. It meant that there were a few iffy matchups, VFL boys pitching in, but if anything, that allows some of our younger boys to shine a bit more and get some more confidence, which is good. As always, there was an A team and a B team. No proper surprises if you've been keeping track with who's on what side from every video. We saw Brian and Draper work together a bit, which was fun, but there was a switch up with Wright, who started on the B team. He flipped halfway through with Brian. He did the opposite. A team, you got guys like Kako and Shield and Pryor showing that they're in line for a round one spot. Perkins too. B team had a lot of VFL and rookies. As I said, there were some strange matchups here and there. That's expected for a session or two. You can't have everyone fit at the same time. But let's get into some individuals and try and get a few of you guys hyped for what is to come in 2025. Yes, this is not always an indicator of who's going to tear up, but it does show you who is feeling good, who's going to have a different role or a more important role in the season. Remember this time last year, Sam Durham was on an absolute tear, being talked about every weekend, and he had a breakout year. So don't take this as gospel or anything, but it's definitely something to note. Let's start with some midfielders. Draper was really dominant in the ruck. He was marking everything around the ground, working really well in stoppages. He is a presence up forward too, which spells danger for Peter Wright, who, by the way, improved a bit on his last session. Last week we were pretty critical of him, and this week he looked a little bit better. But yeah, Sam Draper was probably the most notable player. He's looking in really good shape, which is, it's coincidental because he's got a contract year. Nick Bryan also looked really good. I think that's going to be the combo, Draper and Bryan, and whether or not Wright can sneak in is up to Scott. Under those blokes, you had Sartas and Perkins looking really lively again in the midfield. Sartas has had an incredible preseason. He continues to impress and is well and truly in line for a spot in round one. Perkins has been on and off. He had some great sessions, had some not so great ones, but he was one who impressed yesterday. Merritt was lively. He took a nice little specky, which is rare for him. I've barely seen him jump, let alone jump on shoulders. We were obviously missing quite a few first team mids. Parish was at a wedding. Caldwell still recovering from that hip, so we're far from 100%, but we at least have some young guys impressing, and then others like Setterfield showing that they still exist. He isn't really a first team player, but he is at least showing he knows how to play footy, and he isn't miles behind those ahead of him. The midfield is looking pretty strong. Most notably Sartas. He's the one really catching eyes this preseason. Him and Draper. I feel like every video I have something nice to say about Sartas and Draper. The defensive zone's an interesting one because we're still testing out guys there for outside run. Nick Martin was back there a lot, which is not something to be scared of if you want him on a wing. He's been in a lot of areas this preseason, including the midfield, just giving him more strings to his bow, I guess. Roberts and El Hawley are kind of options too, but I would say they're more likely to be wingmen, and both are looking decent. El Hawley has stalled ever so slightly off his off-season form. In 2025, he hasn't been an absolute star, but he is still around and still a big chance to feature early into the season. The big one, though, is Dylan Shield. He's really starting to cook. I reckon he's all but confirmed to be a best 23 player right now. If we had our first game next week, he's lining up on halfback and pinch hitting in the guts. He's moving really nicely. He's using the ball really nicely. He's rebounding super well. He's obviously a great runner and a great athlete, and that is perfect for a halfback flanker. He can overlap well. I honestly think he's becoming a little bit of a weapon with the work he's doing right now. And more importantly, he's just fit. He doesn't have any injury concerns as of right now, fingers crossed. But he could play round one, which he didn't do last year. Shield was one of the more talked about players from yesterday and just in general this preseason. So keep an eye on him. He's looking very Zorko-esque right now. Not to that extent. Not all Australian, but he's playing a bit like Zorko does, it seems, which is good to see. Needed him to lift, and he's definitely doing some lifting. Forwards, not too much being said about the forwards yesterday. Caddy kicked a few goals on an undersized defence. Kako looked really lively. He's starting to cook a bit as well. He wasn't starring in Match Sim over the off-season late last year, but in 2025, he's showing why he's on the A team in Match Sim now. He's working really nicely in tandem with Jade Gresham. That's going to be the small forward combo. I think those two are at the top of Scott's pecking order, with guys like Guelphy and Davey behind. I'll talk about them in a sec because we obviously have some injury concerns. In fact, that zone in general has been hit a bit by injury. I might just skip over the forward a bit because there wasn't too much to note, it seems. That can happen with lopsided teams, to be fair, so let's just get right onto the injuries. So let's start with the players that didn't participate in training and match sim. As I said, Parrish, Redmond and Langford were suited up for a wedding. Caldwell, Hobbs, Dersmer and Johnson were training a bit, but only on modified loads. Some of them did a tiny bit of match sim. They're returning from injuries a bit, so they're going to ease into it. Hobbs had that shin knock last week, which a few were worried about. Mackay was doing laps. I'm a bit worried about him and his fitness because he hasn't really done much in a while. He hasn't participated in match sim in ages. So we're going to see what happens there. I hope all is okay because that would be a really big loss for the team. Jordan Ridley was another just doing laps. Some are saying back spasm. I don't know how legit, but I hope that's the case and it's not an injury that he's picked up. Maybe it's just precautionary. We don't know yet. Daywicks and Newen weren't training at all. Newen had that surgery, I think, and Daywicks has that ankle. So we have a bit of an injury list growing with some younger players. Nothing crazy. Cox and Guelphy as well, obviously. I forgot to mention them. But yeah, we've got a few players we would want out there in an ideal world. And again, a lot of this is just precautionary. I reckon most of these guys would be playing through their issues if this was regular season. So they all started the day on the injury list or away from training. The big ones that I want to talk about, I guess in detail, starting with Alwyn Davey Junior. Now, he's actually had surgery on his knee. He's had a little operation, and the bad news is that he's going to miss over a month with that knee injury. This is a really frustrating one because he was building really nicely. We were talking last week about how impressive he was and the work he's done to get his body into a better spot for AFL footy. He was looking really lively in that forward line, so Davey is now set to miss the start of the season. 4 to 6 weeks is what they're saying, which when combined with Guelphy and his injury troubles, it all but confirms a debut for Isaac Kako, and it opens the door for Menzies and Reece Unwin to jump in if they want to announce themselves a bit more. The other injury is Harry Jones. So he rolled his ankle and had to be assisted off the field. He left in a golf buggy. The word is just an ankle roll. It doesn't seem to be super serious. No one's too concerned, but we'll obviously wait and see how he looks next week and after probably scans. Hopefully it doesn't halt his training and reduce his loads because this time next month we would be gearing up for our second practice game. We'll be playing footy in no time, so hopefully a few of these guys can recover fast and get up for that. That is that though. Another quick training recap, match sim recap, some unwanted injury news as well. Hopefully no more of that. We're getting really close to practice match territory now. So these videos are going to come at you fast and hopefully no more injuries to talk about. I'm going to have a contract video out early next week. I'm going to have an updated Best 23 video too. That is all for now though. Cheers for watching, Bomber fans. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and as always, go Bombers.